most terrifying experiment of the history.
And it's coming.
A television reporter. Very interesting.
Do you know of any motels around here?
Doesn't seem to be a vacancy anywhere in the whole area. I have an idea. Don't concern yourself with that, Virginia. Just get the room ready. I will become very cross with you. You really must excuse my wife. She's not used to having visitors.
Excuse me. I have to go and hide now. That's not very nice. I'm just kidding.
Virginia came down this morning, brought me my lunch. She started to cry, couldn't stop crying. Seems she got herself with child. Did it feel good taking your own sister? Pull down your trousers, boy.
The girls, Virginia. Where are they? What's happened? Where are they?
Where is everybody?
I said pull down your pants.
I see you've met Junior.
Hi, this is Adrienne King, Alice from Friday the 13th, and the Hysteria continues.
And indeed it does. Welcome back to yet another episode of The Hysteria Continues. And I think we're up to episode 209. And we're heading back to the House in Golden days of the slasher movie, 1981 to be precise, or 8081, depending on which reference you look at, for The Unseen. And whether it should be unseen or not, we will discuss. So, but before we do that, how are you all doing? Joseph, how are you doing on this fine day? Is it a fine day where you are?
Well, it may be, but I'm stuck inside, so I don't really know.
Well, like us all, unfortunately, yes. It's the Hysteria continues under quarantine, bringing you quality entertainment. Well, maybe not quality or entertainment, but we're bringing you something anyway for your lockdown. So.
The sad thing is, by the time that people actually hear this episode, I could very well be dead.
Wow.
Well, that's a cheery thought.
Yeah, you really brought the tone down.
I sure did. And now it's time to bring it up with my joke of the week.
You've got goth virus, I think.
Goth? Yeah. Goth virus.
The Govid. It's called Govid.
Yeah.
Well, how's lockdown treating you, Erik?
Not too bad. It's no different really to my normal life. I'm locking myself in and doing nothing.
Well, yes, fair enough. And same for you, Nathan. Well, you go out and do stuff as well, don't you?
No, I don't really. I haven't left the house. I have a question for you guys. Have you guys ever heard of this show called The Masked Singer?
Yes.
Okay. Am I famous enough to go on that show and sing, and then when they reveal me, people will know who I am? Or am I not that famous? Because Wes and I are disagreeing.
I think you are famous enough for the Masked Singers.
Do they have a criteria to where you have to have a certain amount of followers or people who know who you are?
I mean, so far the people have been like Dionne Warwick and
in fairness,
Dionne
Dionne Warwick and Patti LaBelle are quite famous. In fairness,
yeah. Yeah, but especially with your dulcet tones. We've heard your dulcet tones when we did our duet. So,
I thought we did really good.
Yeah, it was beautiful, actually. It was absolutely
Hysteria
beautiful.
Misfits. Are you serious?
Yeah, because remember, Justin, everybody wanted just a little bit more.
Exactly. Unlike I can't even remember what the other...
It was the Hysteria Misfires, I believe.
Yeah.
No, that was the other group.
Yeah.
What, Twisted Hysteria? Everyone loves Twisted Hysteria.
That doesn't even make any sense.
It doesn't have to. I'm beautiful.
Well, we can see how lockdown's been treating you, Nathan.
Yeah, I've gone crazy, but...
He's gone back to his rhubarb roots.
Yeah.
I mean, I've gone crazy, but I feel like that's just my normal personality. Wes can't tell much of a difference.
Okay. Well, talking of shut-ins, well, actually, I suppose this movie is quite apt, really, isn't it? Considering, yes, which we'll
sort of, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll be covering 1980 or 81's The Unseen for our main feature. But before we do that, considering we've all been inside for the last couple of weeks, what we've been watching. So Nathan, what have you watched in the last couple of weeks?
I watched a new thriller on Netflix called The Platform. It's a movie where these people, whether voluntary or involuntary, it's almost like a prison. And everyone is on a numbered platform. And what happens is at the very top, they make like chef style, like just amazing meals. And then of course, they send it down to platform 1 for a specified amount of time. Then it'll go to 2, then 3. So the movie's about how, of course, as the food goes down further and further, like there gets to be none. And of course, the point of the platform is that everyone is supposed to like just take their ration, and that way everybody in this platform environment can eat, but people don't. And of course, by the time it gets to the lower ones, there's no food, and people go a bit insane when they haven't eaten in a long time.
And that sounds very apt.
It was actually a really good movie. I thought it was very, like, for a movie that just takes place in that one environment, it's very entertaining from beginning to end. I'm not sure how I feel about the ending. I'm not going to spoil it, so don't skip ahead. But I just I kind of don't know how I expected it to end either, though. So I don't know. I mean, I'm fine with the ending. I just, I have no idea how I would have ended it myself. But, well worth a watch, and it's Netflix, so if you've got it, you can watch it for free.
I've seen it on there, and it's on I was going to watch it this week, but we haven't got around to it yet. So, Spanish movie, isn't it?
It's dubbed, but the dubbing is actually not that bad. I mean, especially for those of us that watched, a lot of our favorite foreign horror movies from the 70s.
Bloody Moon.
So, anyone else managed to see that yet?
It's in my queue. I've been meaning to watch it.
It's really good.
Do the people at the top platform and take all the toilet paper?
They don't get toilet paper. Yeah.
Do you see what
when you go into the platform, you're allowed one thing, and that's all you can have with you.
So what do they do when they need to relieve themselves?
Flop.
Well, they, I'm assuming poop off the edge, because there's where the platform comes down, where the food drops down, it's a big open space.
Right.
So when it's nighttime and the food, is done and it's back at the top, I guess they just use that giant open hole for it. So I wouldn't put my face over the edge. But
they do use the giant open hole.
But there is.
Listening to him describe this fucking movie is just.
But there is a sink and stuff on each one, so you can at least I guess you clean your butt that way too. I'm assuming. I don't know.
The Platform, Netflix, 2020. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you, Nathan. I shall look forward to that and the interesting possibilities it brings. And anything else?
I don't remember if I talked about The Hunt last time. Did I?
No, I don't think we did.
I watched The Hunt as well. The that new movie where all the rich people kidnap. It's basically like people who are liberals kidnap a bunch of conservatives and hunt them on their property. I liked the movie. I thought it was very entertaining, but the plot is about as thin as you can possibly get. There's no really significant character development. I mean, even to me with the main characters, I didn't feel like there was much character development. I mean, I think if you just go in expecting a completely, totally fun, brainless action movie, I think you'll enjoy it. And I know I get the whole thing they're doing, with the politics and read between the lines and all that, but I'm just looking at it from a entertaining movie standpoint, and that's how I felt about it. But it's got a lot of great action sequences, a lot of fun fighting, and a few moments actually made me laugh out loud. So, it's good. It's just not, I don't know. I don't think it was great.
Anyone else seen that? I've seen it, but I'll
not
chip
yet.
in.
No.
Joseph?
That's one I've got on my queue as well. So I haven't gotten to it yet. But I will.
Okay. Well, I saw it as well. It was the film, wasn't it, that it got pulled, didn't it, because there was some real life shooting or something, wasn't there? And it was a big controversy that even Trump tweeted about it. And but interestingly, the film it doesn't really seem to take sides, does it? It's not because
not really,
because the liberals are assholes and a lot of the kind of the right wingers are assholes. So it doesn't really take sides. I mean, I liked it well enough. It's just it felt like it didn't go far enough in any one direction. It wasn't silly enough to be or comedic enough to be really funny, and it wasn't sort of kind of dark enough to be like kind of biting satire either. It kind of felt like it was trying to wear too many hats, really. Because ostensibly it was kind of based on that the Most Dangerous Game, wasn't it? Which is I think the old 1930s movie about about people being hunted as big game. And there's been various types of films like that. There's that great werewolf one, isn't there, from the 70s? Peter Cushing. I can't remember the name. It's called like not the werewolf is loose or something. Where
The Beast Must Die.
The Beast Must Die. We have the werewolf break.
That movie is amazing.
I love it.
Yeah,
it is so good.
So it's kind of reminded me a little bit of that to some degree, but I like the way that you, especially in the film, that you really don't know who is going to survive, really, because to start off with,
they do a really good job with that, honestly, because I mean you feel like they're honing in on one person to be kind of the main character, and then they pull the rug out.
Yes. So, okay. Well, that was the hunt. Anything else, Nathan?
That's it. Anything else we've all seen or most of us have seen, so I'll just hold off until we discuss those.
Okay. Right. Well, thank you. Joseph, how about you?
No, I mean, it's like I've watched a lot, but it's just been kind of non-horror stuff, so I don't really have any like horror movie stuff to talk about.
No problem. Well, Eric's requested to come last, which is always part of the course. So I'll do a couple of things that then we're actually kind of recording again. It's one of our bit of a time travel shows. So we're actually recording this before our Scream 3 episode, which is going out afterwards. So slightly out of kilter with some things timeline wise. But a couple of films that I saw, one that I've just reviewed on Hysteria Lives was from 1990, was Night Killer. It was one of the kind of many of those late 80s, early 90s, I'm going to guess, sort of slasher sort of movies made in America by Italian or Spanish filmmakers, and this one's made by Claudia Fragasso with extra bits filmed by Bruno Mattei. And if those names don't mean anything to you, well, they might mean something to you, because it was filmed the same year and the same director, the Claudia Fragasso, as Troll 2, which of course is being celebrated for years and years and years now as, in inverted commas, the best worst movie. So this was filmed the same year, none of the same cast. But it has, if you can imagine, it's kind of like the adult version of Troll 2, whereas Troll 2 was kind of more or less a kids' movie. This is Fragasso trying to go for sort of, I kind of guess he's stretching for a kind of adult, not as in porno, although there's loads of boobs in it, sort of a sadomasochistic thriller. And the basic storyline is it's set in Florida, and there's this kind of killer in this monster mask with this clawed rubber glove going around killing women. And he targets this one woman, and for some reason she doesn't end up dead, but she wakes up in hospital, and she doesn't remember who the killer is. And then all manner of batshit crazy stuff happens. That you've got, this movie is just completely mental in so many different ways. You've got the mother is played by, I think it's Tara Buckman, who was, if you remember, the Billy's mother in Silent Night, Deadly Night from 1984, which are kind of cameos in the flashback where they get stopped by the Santa Claus and he rips her blouse off. So similar things happen here with her blouse pinging off at various stages. And she gets chased around by her abusive ex-partner, husband. She tries to kill her, spends most of the movie trying to kill herself. And then you've got this killer going around with this bizarre rubber glove, this kind of Freddy-style glove, but made out of rubber. So although he can cut throats and he can punch through women's torsos, every time he leans against the wall, the rubber claws bend. And there's just so much as if you're familiar with a lot of those kind of 80s Italian movies like Nightmare Beach and all those kind of movies, then you're familiar that a lot of the acting is kind of turned up to 11, but in this case it's turned up even higher, and it's got possibly one of the worst performances ever set to celluloid by this woman called Annie, whose name doesn't even appear in the credits, who gives what perhaps the worst performance I might have ever seen. So Nathan, I know that you've seen it. I had a feeling this might be one that might be up your alley, and I think I was right, wasn't I?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the killer to me, and I told you guys this before, he is the most unscary killer in a movie because it's basically on par with somebody putting a mask on and going rawr, 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 rawr. That's basically this killer. And it's so ludicrous. Like, Joe, you're gonna love this movie because it is so unbelievably ridiculous. So you got Tara Buckman's character, and she works from home, and for no reason at all, in one scene, just decides to like pull her top down and fondle her boobs while she has this internal monologue. It's ridiculous. And then there's when you're talking about her her sleazy ex that's harassing her, she makes him strip in the women's bathroom and basically embarrasses him at gunpoint. And then later he tracks her down to the beach and finds her trying to kill herself, and then he like prevents her from doing that, only to turn around and say, yeah, I know I saved your life, but I'm still a bad guy because I'm your master, and all this kind of stuff. It's so absurd. I mean, every bit of it is just ridiculous, like the dialogue and the acting. I mean, nobody acts this way. That's why when you told me it was from the creators of Troll 2, I was like, I've got to see this thing. And you're right, the glove, and you said this in your review too, the glove, there's many scenes of him punching through these women with the clawed glove, but you could see the claws bend like they're cheap plastic. So it's a funny movie. It's really hysterical to me. I loved it.
Yeah, I am astonishingly sure that I have had this on VHS at some point, but I never watched it. But it sounds amazing. I have to.
It is.
I have
You'll
to see
like
that
it
as soon as possible. Yeah.
What about you, Erik? Because I know you're familiar with it, aren't you? You saw it before.
I have seen it, and I watched it again this week when you guys said you were watching it too. I love it too, and it has possibly the best opening 10 minutes of a film I've seen in a very long time. It opens with that dance troupe. I use the word dance troupe in inverted commas. They're supposed to be putting on what I suppose is a professional kind of Broadway-esque show, and none of the dancers can keep time. You know what it reminded me of? The dance sequence. The episode of Friends where Joey accidentally ends up teaching the dance class, and do you remember that episode? That's kind of what they look like. And then I wager, Justin, that the woman who plays the director, the choreographer, is the worst actress in the film. She's hilarious because you can see she's trying to sort of improv her lines when she's throwing her hissy fit. It's just so bad. It's hilarious. And as you were saying, when the killer comes on screen and he's got like a rubber mask and the rubber glove on, I was like, okay, he's got a Halloween. It's just a normal human being with the Halloween mask on. And then when he punches through the woman's torsos, I'm like, oh no, he's a supernatural killer. Maybe that's meant to be his like real face, and it just looks a bit rubbery. But no, it does turn out to be just a human with a mask on, and it's just no explanation as to why he can punch through people's stomachs. It's just so weird. No thought has gone into the film at all, and that's why I love it. And the character of the crazy ex is kind of an enigma up until the very end, where they explain what his motivation was all along, and it's incredibly silly and a bit dangerous as well. But yeah, I thought it was as good as Troll 2, to be honest. I love it.
It's I would be interested to see what you think, Joseph, because it's something all right. Although I think that whole beginning in the theatre was added by Bruno Mattei.
Okay.
So apparently in the original film there wasn't any punching through torsos or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was.
Do you know if this had an alternate title? Because it sounds like something. It's almost starting to sound familiar to me now.
Well, it was released as Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 in Italy. So
really,
yeah.
Yeah, but then everywhere else it was known as Night Killer. So
I don't know. Some of it sounds familiar. familiar, but some of it doesn't. So I don't know, but I am going to watch it.
I love in the beginning the killer when he goes after the dance teacher. I love that the killer basically lets her stand there on that balcony, like trying to get somebody's attention for a long time before he finally comes up to her to finish her off.
I love the reaction of the dancers as well when she falls off the balcony. They just look like they're like, that's kind of their
like, oh well, yeah, it's not something you see every day.
Also, I must admit, the other thing I love about this movie is they have about 5 cutaways to news reporters, like on the scene.
They are brilliant.
And they're so bad. It's just like they've picked somebody off the street and said, right, here's
your lines.
Here's your lines. Yeah. Read them into the camera.
Sounds like the director just has no idea how human beings are supposed to act.
I think it's from because you remember with Troll 2 that everything's so over the top, and they were saying to the director, "Are you sure you want us to say this? Because it doesn't really make any sense. It doesn't sound natural for an American to be speaking this way." And he said, "No, you've got to say these lines how we've written them. This is how I want it. You need to be bigger. You need to be bolder." And so they really just went with what he wanted. So it's the same here. Everything is just over the top.
Not many teenage girls would tell their boyfriend that her father's going to cut off their nuts and eat them. It's not really something that I've ever heard outside of Troll 2.
No.
Yeah.
So, yes, well, that's...
Actually, Troll 2 has an amazing dance sequence in it as well. Which is
true.
On par with this
one.
It
does. Yeah. Yes.
So, well, that was Night Killer. The other film, actually, I just watched tonight, just before we started recording. It's on Amazon Prime in Spain and presumably UK. I don't know if in the States. It's The Borley Rectory, which is it's a new kind of documentary film, sort of it's dramatised, kind of half documentary, half just sort of dramatised. And it's got Reece Shearsmith from League of Gentlemen and Inside Number 9. Playing a character in it as well, and it's narrated by Julian Sands, and it's based on it's basically the history of the Borley Rectory, which was famously England's most haunted house, and it was the inspiration for The Haunting and The Legend of Hell House, the Richard Matheson tale, and the Shirley Jackson book, The Haunting of Hill House. So it's it was really well done. It's done in this kind of slightly it's almost like an old movie. Everything's done in it's very stylized, and the music was by Steve Severin from Susie and the Banshees. So there you go, Erik. One for you. So
it is on Amazon Prime here, so I might give that a watch. It has under genre. It has animation.
Well,
that sounds like a 0 for Erik, actually.
Well, it's kind of. I thought it was. I saw that and I thought it was all going to be animated. It's not animated. I don't know why they've said it's animated. It's very stylized, but it's got actors and actresses in it, sort of recreating the roles of the characters that the people who live there and things like that. But it's very stylized, like an old sort of 19, I don't know, sort of, like something like Haxon, or sort of those 1930s kind of slight, or Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, that kind of feel to it.
Okay, yeah.
So it's definitely worth a look. It's all in black and white, very gothic looking. Erik, so another one for you to enjoy.
Just for you.
Yeah, I know. So lots of headless horsemen and things like that.
These all sound like things Justin would like, and not Erik. You're gonna love this, Erik, and you keep naming off all this stuff. Like, it's very gothic. It's got Susie and the Banshees.
Well, you wouldn't.
It's anti-bear.
Yes. Well, it goes against everything I stand for.
Erik, how many Susie and the Banshees albums do you have?
I have 3.
Well, there you go. Case closed. So,
well, how many Toya albums do you have?
None.
Yeah, how many Toya albums do you have, Justin?
None.
What? Apart from the 6 ones you have.
No, I have never. No? I've hand on heart. I've never bought a Toya record. I'm not saying that to be mean. I just never have. I never did.
You should. I mean, you really should, with a whole toilet paper shortage.
You can't use a vinyl record for toilet paper.
You could use the sleeve.
Go back and massive forth. Paper cut.
Yeah. But you
I know you already have a crack there, but still, you don't want to make it wider.
You want to extend it, yeah.
But if you play the Changeling backwards, so you can hear Harold's plops. So
if you play what backwards?
Is it the Changeling? Is that one of her albums?
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
if you play It's a Mystery backwards, there's a really ripping recipe for a lentil soup.
That's another Simpsons reference.
Yes.
So anyway, well, that's well, Eric. What about you?
No, that's all I
Okay.
have for now.
Well, I kind of guess it's time to get to the main attraction. So, Eric, you're going to bring us back in after this. This is the TV spot for The Unseen.
They wanted to see something different. But something different saw them first. The unseen lives.
Let go!
When you see it, it'll be too late. There has never been a film as frightening. A terror as evil. A nightmare as real. Barbara Bach stars in The Unseen from World Northall, rated R.
Jennifer is one of 3 beautiful women in a TV crew sent to cover a festival in a remote northern Californian town. The local motels are filled and the women are forced to accept a strange old man's offer of a room in his house. Before nightfall, while Jennifer is out with her lover, the other 2 women are seized and brutally murdered by a horrifying force. As Jennifer flees from the grisly discovery of their mangled bodies, she suddenly comes face to face with the abomination that never should have been born, a creature known only as Susie.
Oh, for goodness sake.
A bizarre and chilling story of unrelenting violence. That's 1 point for me, Justin. So The Unseen, I chose this mainly because it's from 1980 or 81, whichever you choose, and it's one we haven't covered yet. It's not one that I particularly like, though. I mean, in terms of production values, it's quite good. It looks, kind of professional and like a studio product. But for starters, it belongs to that sort of crazy backwoods family subgenre, which isn't one that I'm mad about. I mean, I like films like Texas Chainsaw Massacre to a degree and American Gothic, which we covered recently. I like that one. But when it comes to slashers, I just prefer, a soul slasher who's silent and mysterious and eerie. I know I've said this a million times. And, other than that, if I'm going for horror, it tends to be sci-fi or supernatural monster type movies. This kind of backwoods family, I just find them a bit drab. And that's how I would describe The Unseen in general. I've never been a fan. I kind of warmed to it more this week rewatching it, but I've always found it quite plodding. There's no real sense of threat and the characters are a bit bland. And the film feels overlong, even though it's a short, scant 91 minutes long. The first half is kind of dominated by long scenes of dialogue, usually involving Sidney Lassick as the lead villain in the film, chewing the scenery whilst his wife/sister screams hysterically. So the characters just aren't that interesting to me. I mean, I find the trio of leading ladies to be quite one-dimensional, and I just don't really root for them at all. But the film does have some good points. The murders of Karen and Vicky are quite well done, especially Karen's death, where the killer grabs her scarf through the grate in the floor and then sort of slams her head against it. And Vicky's death is quite interesting too, where she's dragged through, another grate and another floor. By an unseen entity, which I can imagine when I watched this for the first time, probably in the late 80s, I probably thought, oh, there's some kind of supernatural element to this, because she looks like she's in a paranormal activity movie where she's just being flung around the room by some invisible force. But it does turn out that there is a human being in the basement who is famously known for as the grown man in a nappy, but he's not wearing a nappy. If you look closely, those are underpants, Justin Kurzweil. I don't care what anyone says, they are underpants.
And there's a great big brown stain at the back, which I saw in this time in high definition. Sometimes you want high definition, and some films suit high definition. And
yes, I know. I was kind of wishing to have an old grubby VHS back so that would be masked for me. The point where we get to meet Junior in the basement, I mean, there is some fun to be had. I think Stephen Furst is actually really good in the role of Junior as this kind of monstrous man-child. And his role is kind of quite fun at times, although I'm not sure it's terribly politically correct, because I think the insinuation is that he has Down syndrome, and it's not a very PC depiction of that. And it's not the kind of film that probably would be made today. So the second half of the film does develop a bit of pace that's missing from the first half, possibly because it ditches the boring subplot about Barbara Bach and her boyfriend Doug Barr, which really is kind of superfluous to the plot. I mean, to quote Joey Tribbiani again in Friends, he could be on the Olympic standing there team because he doesn't really do a whole lot. But yeah, so the film is just a little flat for me. And I kept checking my watch. No, I don't wear a watch. What am I saying? I'm checking my phone. Nobody wears a watch these days. One observation I did.
I do.
Do you?
Yes, I still wear a wristwatch.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
You do know it's 2020.
I don't care.
Ooh.
I don't follow your standards of fashion. Get on with your damn review.
Yes, as I sit here in my Jimmy Choo shoes and my Chanel frock. They're the only designers I've ever heard of. One observation I did make about the film is the film opens with the sound of grunting, a man grunting, and then it sort of ends with the sound of another man grunting, that being Junior. The one at the start is Doug Barr's character, who's in the middle of a workout. So the film is kind of bookended by grunting men, which is kind of what sounds like a Saturday night at Justin's house.
Oh,
no?
Erik.
Being bookended by grunting men?
Well, I think that's the pot calling the kettle black.
No, I don't think it is. I think it's the new romantic calling the goth a slut.
I think Justin would be like bookended by wall-to-wall pussy.
Well, that is true, actually.
This
yes.
is true.
Yes.
Of the feline kind.
Yes, and actually there's an abortion subplot in the film as well that's kind of mirrored in the two families, because Virginia, as the mother of Junior, it's revealed that she was sort of almost pushed into aborting the child by her father. And then Barbara Bach is also facing a similar decision in her life. So there are kind of parallels between the two groups, which I suppose shows a bit of thought has gone into the script on that. But as I said, the film just has, to me, doesn't really have that much pace. The body count is, I think it's just a handful of people anyway. It's the two girls and then maybe the father as well. And, it's just three really. And there's just not enough to fill in the gaps in between the murder scenes for me. So it could have done with being Friday the 13th up a bit, having more kills, maybe a bit, and the film is quite humorless as well. It could have done maybe with a jokey character or something just to pep it up a little, because I just found it kind of lifeless for most of its running time. But it's not totally. I wouldn't say I hate the film. I just find it a bit meh. I think it has some good points, but no, for me, it's kind of a thumbs down, I'm afraid, for The Unseen. Now, I don't really know what any of you guys think about this film, because it's not one that's cropped up in conversation all that much. So why don't we go to Nathan first?
Yeah, The Unseen, I had actually never seen it.
So it was unseen.
Yes, it was unseen for me. I remember the artwork from when I was a kid, like the video art that was, Barbara Bach looking frightened and on it. And I mean, I always thought about watching it. I don't know why I never did. In all honesty, I kind of can see where you're coming from, Erik. I feel like it's rates kind of in the meh scale for me too, because it's competently made, but the pacing is way off in this movie, and it's not like bad enough to be hysterically funny or anything like that. So it just kind of falls in the middle for me. It's just kind of there. I thought Sidney Lassick was awesome in his role. I mean, he definitely hammed it up, but that's, was helpful with it. And Stephen First did a really good job too. But like the kills themselves they don't really stand out. I mean, it's kind of the same type of kill for both women, just in slightly different ways in the movie. And I think they could have done with having some more characters that could have gotten killed off, but I know this wasn't trying to be that kind of movie. I just wish it was, is what I'm trying to say. Barbara Bach's character, I wanted to root for her more than I did. I wasn't rooting for her to die or anything, but I just didn't feel that invested in her character because, even at the end when, everything's going on in front of her. I mean, she doesn't really do much, but just kind of sit there and stare at what's happening. So she's not really kind of the, take charge final girl that I like. She is more of the, I don't know, damsel in distress kind of final girl, which, you know, I get it, but I mean, that's just not what I prefer in my movies, is what I'm trying to say. So The Unseen, I mean, while I do think it's got a lot of positive points, I feel like, unfortunately, for me, it will end up being a forgettable movie. Whereas if it's like a year or two later and we are talking about this movie again, I'm going to say, I don't really remember much about it. And that's what I think I'm probably going to end up being like with it. So, I mean, I would give it like a 6 out of 10. Not bad, but just kind of,
Yes. It's no Night Killer, that's for sure. Joseph, The Unseen.
So yeah, I don't find The Unseen bad or anything, but like you've both said already, it's really quite unremarkable, isn't it? I mean, it just feels so vanilla despite having a few standout sequences. I did like the sort of slow buildup in the scenes where in that one scene in particular where Junior is pulling the scarf through the grate to kill that one girl. This will sound kind of weird, but it really reminded me a bit of the raft sequence from Creepshow 2 and how it's paced and how it takes the character a couple of extra seconds to realize what's going on. Like in that story, you had the blob would attach onto something and the character wouldn't realize it for like a few seconds, and they do that here. So I just found some similarities there. That stuff is pretty effective, like I said. But I don't know, this all feels really predictable and paint by numbers. I mean, I had seen this a long time ago and I didn't really remember anything about it. And, on my rewatch today, I figured out what was going on with Virginia, Junior, and Ernest, pretty much right off the bat. So there was no real mystery there. And can we talk about Ernest for a second? Because what an absolutely disgusting wart of a human being this character is. I mean, it's bad enough that he's this self-centered little bully, but he's so gross. I mean, he's constantly like sweaty and breathing heavily and doing this sort of like face acting where his saggy fat skin contorts into this kind of like pretzel like images. And hey, I know I'm no catch myself and I have no room to judge, but I just found his character so nauseating to watch. There's a scene where he's eating breakfast and I just wanted to throw up. I mean, it's so loud. You can hear him like scarfing down the food. And I know he's supposed to be hateful and unlikable, but did he have to be gross too? I mean, I know Sidney Lastick made sort of a career out of playing these shifty characters, but I don't ever recall him, playing so repulsive before. So I guess good job on that, because he really did repulse me. I think the Virginia character, she may be the only sympathetic character in the film, but even she is such a sad sack. I didn't care because she just stood there and just took any abuse hurled her way until the very, very end of the film. And it's just, I don't know, it's hard to, root for anyone here. I thought the Barbara Bach storyline with her boyfriend was just boring and so superfluous to what the unseen is about, which is the unseen in the basement. Stephen Furst as Junior is pretty good. I think the makeup, making him look like a dirty man-child, who sleeps in filth. I thought it was pretty effective. I could have felt like they could have trimmed out so much from this film and focused more on him kind of maneuvering through the house, picking off these people one by one. I thought that would have been a far better movie than what we got. I think overall this film, to me, production wise, feels more like a poshier version of Unhinged with maybe a few minor tweaks. But I think that film had kind of had those low budget gaffes and the bizarro atmosphere to kind of keep it afloat. And I don't know, this one feels like it had a lot of fingers in the pie, but not one person left any cohesive ingredient, if that makes any sense. I mean, it's kind of like a slasher film. It's a woman in peril film. It's a backwoods family drama. It's a relationship drama. And it's kind of all done with this sort of like, okay, if we must attitude. And so for me, it's a thumbs down. I mean, I do concede that the film has some strengths, but they're just not enough to warrant a rewatch for me. So that's my thoughts on The Unseen.
Well, Joseph, I think you are quite a catch. Don't be so hard on yourself.
I'm no Junior.
Now,
I'm no Ernest.
Let's get the thoughts
Whoa.
What?
You think I'm a catch? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you think like Harold's a catch. That doesn't instill me with any confidence.
Okay, well then you're not a catch then.
Okay, thanks. That makes me feel much better.
Now, well, let's get the thoughts of our very own man-child who sleeps in his own filth. That's you, Justin.
Oh, Erik. At least we'd pull back the grubby curtain. We can see you for the bully you are.
How dare you?
So, well, the unseen. It's I look back at my review on Hysteria Lives, and I must have written it 20 odd years ago, and I seem to be a little bit more enamoured with it in that review than I am now. And actually, quite often it's the other way around. It's films that I was on the back then. As many of us were when we started to kind of venture out from the franchises, we were kind of looking for the next Halloween or Friday the 13th or My Bloody Valentine. And then quite often now I go back to some of those films that don't quite fit the mould, like this one, and I'm more forgiving, I kind of guess, or find things to appreciate. And I can find things to appreciate still in this. There is a kind of this kind of weird, the weirdness to it, which I can appreciate. There's a kind of oddness. It's like the Sidney Lassett character when he's, the scene when he's putting clothes pegs on his nose and making funny faces and things like that. It's not something you would see every day, and the choices of having this bizarre Dutch or Belgian, whatever it was, kind of town in California where everyone's dressed in clogs and bonnets and playing oompa music. It's kind of, it is one of a kind, the unseen, and it kind of reminded me of a couple of movies, one from the early 70s called Beast in the Cellar with Beryl Reid and two old ladies who keep some kind of monster, like a similar type, sort of a man in the cellar, like kind of a psychopathic murderer. And the other one, which was very similar to this in a lot of ways, is Silent Scream with Barbara Steele and Rebecca Balding, where you swapped out. You actually had the killer being Barbara Steele as this kind of psychopathic, he's sort of fading high school beauty queen living in the attic. So very different, literally, from the attic down to the basement. But whereas the Silent Scream was actually quite successful financially on Hot on the Heels of Halloween. The Unseen, we get onto background, wasn't. So it's I think, despite all the quirkiness in it, and it is well shot. I find Barbara Bach for the first half of the film is like a charisma vacuum. I don't warm to her at all. She's a bit of a hard-nosed kind of, reporter. Doesn't leave much room for any kind of sympathetic traits with her, really. Her sister and the other woman, they're really one-dimensional. So there's nothing, and they're killed off pretty early on. So it's not a fun film. I don't find it fun, and I find it kind of, I think, if I was going to call it anything, I'd say it's kind of dull and a bit unsavoury, and that's not kind of really a good combination. I mean, I think when you get into the last 20 minutes of Stephen Furst as this man-child baby in his soiled underpants running around sticking teddy bears down the front of his underpants, I think, again, if it had gone down the route of, I've got these mental images of Stephen Furst as this baby in these soiled underpants, stalking the hallways of this big Gothic mansion, and these shots from behind of him stalking his prey with these, big skid marks. It's maybe it's for the best that didn't happen. Maybe it's
I don't know
the best.
what it is, but hearing Justin say the word skid marks is very funny.
Well,
it is very funny.
But it was Stephen Furst. It was kind of, I found this interview from him because he's obviously best known, although he had quite a long career, but he was best known for Animal House, where he got his break. And there was a interview with him and talking about The Unseen, and it was saying that he was he actually said that he did The Unseen. He said it's his first dramatic role, and he calls it an in-depth film. So it kind of sounds like he's going to be doing this very serious film, where he's going to do this breakout away from this kind of character from Animal House. But if anything, he's kind of not doing the same character, but it's kind of, there's a kind of, I'm trying to imagine what audiences would have thought after thinking like, thinking, what is this terror, this horror that is the unseen in the basement, and it is a middle-aged man baby in soiled underpants who sticks teddy bears down the front of them, and it is so bizarre. It's. The other thing I thought was funny because he kind of hides down there, and you would have thought she would have smelt him as well, wouldn't you, when she went down there? Because that man hasn't had a bath for 40 years by the look of it. So, but yeah, it's one of those films that falls into that kind of weird no man's land after Halloween came out, where they were looking for the next Halloween, and they were making films that were like Halloween, but not really like Halloween. They hadn't really found the groove, as it were, the slash movie groove. And I think this film, not wanting to jump into background too much, but just saying that the interview with him was from February 1980 when he was talking about this film. So it must have been filmed around that time, or late 79. So it was pre-Friday the 13th, but post-Halloween. So it seemed like Fade to Black or, this film, Silent Scream. A lot of these movies, they hadn't sort of settled on that slash movie formula. So they're all a bit of a wild card, really. It's not a film that I'm going to be any rush to go back to watch, but I'm glad we've covered it because it is a slash movie from the golden age. So it's definitely worthy of its time in the sun, although it's not mine or anyone's favourite, I imagine.
No. Yes, and you mentioned the teddy bear down the underpants, and there's a scene where he shoves the teddy bear in Barbara Bach's face, and she starts screaming, and I don't understand why, because I have no problem with the bear being forced onto me. Do you guys?
Well, I did notice also he put his hands down his front and started doing this fapping sound, which reminded me of you, Erik.
I hope that's the only thing that reminded me of you when I watched Junior.
Well,
yes.
I played the
my underpants are spotlessly clean.
Okay, well, we'll have to wait.
Just one thing, the when I think of the Unseen and Junior, it makes me think of the Don't trailer from Grindhouse, which I'm assuming was that the inspiration, or is there any other films of a man-child in a nappy chained up in a basement?
Well, isn't it? What about the baby as well? That Grindhouse movie?
Yeah,
because that's sort of got that kind of feel to it, isn't it? And it's but say have you seen The Beast in the Cellar? I think it's The Beast in the Cellar. It was from
I know of it, but I've never seen it.
I think it's Tigan, or it was one of those British films, but I haven't seen it. I saw it, probably haven't seen it for 30 or 40 years, but it was one of those ones that used to be on BBC late night double bills with Beryl Reid. So it's one I'd like to go back and watch. But it seemed to have that thing. The other one that kind of reminded me of a little bit, I kind of guess in some ways, was Tower of Evil, where you've got this kind of this killer tramp style kind of wild man living under a lighthouse, but not this kind of sort of man baby. It's a strange, quite how they came up with it or why they went down this route. I don't know, but it's they were choices and they definitely made them.
Yeah, they certainly did when it came to the skid marks.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So, well, should we get into some backgrounds?
Yes. Nathan, do you have any background?
No.
Joseph, do you have any background?
Yeah, I have a little bit here. An item in the January 14th, 1980 issue or whatever it was of the Hollywood Reporter stated that I'm going to assume this is gay good enough and not gay good enough. I don't know who that is, but it kind of sounds like a made-up name.
It does. Sounds like somebody on RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yeah, it said they had been cast in the film. However, Good Enough does not receive on-screen credit. According to an article in the 12th of December 1979 Variety, Danny Steinman wrote the screenplay and made his feature film directorial debut on The Unseen. The film budgeted at $2 million, shot footage at a festival in Sylvan, California, in September of 1979 and resumed principal photography on November 16th of 1979. Locations included Slovang and Altadena, California. Principal photography ended January 10th of 1980. Director Danny Steinman was upset with the final cut of the film because it missed most of the major scares. He had his name removed from the movie and was credited under the pseudonym Peter Folig. The project originally began as a screenplay by Kim Henkel and Michael Viner. This final screenplay was so radically altered that both men were not credited. Henkel and Viner's screenplay was eventually adapted into the book Deadly Encounter. Carl Weathers was originally considered for the role of Tony Ross. Director Danny Steinman was apparently very difficult to work for on the set, and some of the actors barely spoke to him at all. It said that he had absolutely no idea how to talk to people, especially actors. And that's pretty much all the background I have.
Excellent stuff. Justin, do you have anything?
I have a few bits. It was co-produced by someone called Don Burns, who also was a producer on John Carpenter's Halloween. So again, along the lines of a lot of producers who are making out to make a quick buck on the slasher movie. So he obviously was hoping that the Halloween magic would rub off, which of course it unfortunately didn't. The film it won the best low budget film at the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy and Horror Films in 1982. It was due to be released to cinemas in April of 1980 in the United States. It didn't get released. It was it kind of sat on the shelf basically for a while. It got released in Europe, mainland Europe, in September of 1980. But in the UK not until 1982, and it didn't get released until 1981 in the US on a double bill with the Chuck Norris Hong Kong kung fu movie Slaughter in San Francisco, and the some of the posters called it Action, a Suspense, which I don't think either of those things can really be attributed to the unseen. The first makeup took 5 hours to apply each day. He got up at 4 a.m. And they streaked his hair with spray dye to make it look extra dirty. Douglas Barr, who doesn't really have a great deal to do in this really, apart from the irony-fueled thing at the end where he spends the beginning of the movie trying to strengthen his leg. He's obviously some kind of athlete who's had an injury, and then he goes running to save the day, and then his leg snaps. But he was also in Deadly Blessing in 1981. And the last thing I was going to mention, obviously, Danny Steinman he obviously went on to do Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, and he was trying to make The Last House on the Left Part 2, which was going to have Krug and company coming back and I think stalking people at a summer camp. I think that was the idea behind it. But apparently it wasn't his first film. He did actually make the porno film High Rise in 1973. And I looked it up, and it has the wonderful Bertha Boobs as large-breasted dancer. And the other one that caught my attention was Jutta David as lesbian-speaking German. So anyway, I haven't seen...
Should that not be German-speaking lesbian?
Well, that's what it's got it listed down as on IMDb, is lesbian-speaking German. And so Jutta David and Bertha Boobs are in High Rise, if you ever want to see that. Whether or not it's available, I don't know. But yeah, so that's all the background I've got on the unseen.
Okay, well, I've got a few other things here. Apparently, according to the commentary on the Code Red DVD that I have, the budget was 1.2 million, which is quite high, I suppose, for the era. Craig Reardon did the effects on this. This was pre him going into superstardom with things like Poltergeist and that. But he had an abandoned prop body of Stephen Furst, which he stripped down as a skeleton and then used it in the swimming pool sequence in Poltergeist 2 years after this. Tom Berman was also one of the effects artists on the film, and he remembers Tom Selleck almost being cast in it, I'm assuming as the Doug Barr role rather than the junior role. As you said, Carl Weathers was going to be in it, but Doug Barr... as we said, in terms of slasher movies, he's most famous for being in Deadly Blessing, but I'm guessing his most famous and most iconic role outside of horror is that of Howie in The Fall Guy. I don't know, was The Fall Guy a big deal in the 80s in the States? Because it was huge over here.
Yes.
Yes,
it was massive over here, yeah.
Yeah, so he was the sidekick to Lee Majors in that film. Karen Lamb.
Hi, Marge. I'm Lee Majors. Would you fly away with me?
Karen Lamb, who plays Karen in the film, she was married, first of all, to the keyboard player with Soft Rockers Chicago. His name was Robert Lamb. And then she was married twice to the Beach Boy Dennis Wilson, and she died in 2001 at the age of 49. Now, the producer Tony Unger mentions on the commentary track that she was quite troubled, and he innocently thought that when she reappeared from a lunch break with white powder on her nose, he assumed that it was just icing sugar from a donut she was eating, because he says he was a bit naive back then. And on various days, she apparently wouldn't show up. She'd just go out driving in her Porsche, and she just wouldn't tell anyone. So So yeah, she was a bit of a tough actress to deal with, apparently. I don't know if any of you guys have that Code Red DVD, because on the extras, for some reason, they thought it was a good idea to loop that Oompa music from the festival footage they have in the start of the movie. They loop the Oompa music in the background, sometimes for 36 minutes while they're interviewing Doug Barr or Craig Reardon on the DVD, and it makes it painful to sit through. Jeff Kramer is a blogger, and I found an interview he had with Danny Steinman in 2009, and he talks to him about the unseen and quite he goes into quite a lot of detail. He says it was an idea that he had with his friend Stan Winston, and yes, that is the Stan Winston of Aliens and Dead and Buried and all those great movies, Pumpkinhead. They hired a screenwriter called Michael Grace to produce a screenplay from their idea for the unseen. They weren't happy with it, so they went to Kim Henkel, he mentioned already. That proved fruitless as well. So Steinman wrote the film himself, and then went on to, of course, direct it, although the producers wanted James Mason originally for the lead role. That was that Steinman had eyed for Sidney Lassick. Sidney Lassick...
This is James Mason. I'm going to be in your movie.
Sidney Lassick, I only really know him as the English teacher in Carrie. Is he?
We've seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Of course, yes. That was his big sort of movie from his catalog.
He's been in quite a few big movies. He's always playing the kind of, either he's like an evil asshole, or he's kind of this shifty little, kind of scared little wormy character. But he was just very repulsive in this one.
Yes, they put their foot down and insisted on there being an A-lister in the cast somewhere, and that A-lister turned out to be Barbara Bach. I suppose she was close to being an A-lister at the time after her role in the Mega Bond movie, The Spy Who Loved Me, but as we were saying, she's kind of flashing the movie. I don't know if it's her fault, or if it's a script, or if it's a director.
There was like just a brief period in the 70s where she was kind of all the rage. So
yeah.
Well, she was in a couple of Jali, wasn't she? She's in Black Belly of the Tarantula and Short Night at the Glass Dolls, and then went on to be in the Sergio Martino movies, like the what was it, Screamers, wasn't it? The Fishmen movie, Island of the, I can't remember, and also the alligator
Island of the
one.
Fishmen, yeah. Here's one thing that Steinman says. I don't know how true this is because it sounds very far-fetched, but this bit doesn't sound far-fetched because here's a top secret bit of information. Sidney Lassick is gay. Okay, and he didn't want to have to kiss his female co-star because he was kind of repulsed by the idea and felt very uncomfortable doing it. So Danny Steinman says that he managed to convince Sidney Lassick that his co-star was actually a man who'd had a sex change, and that's how he talked him into kissing him. Her, even.
That sounds kind of
ludicrous. Yes, and I mean, if you've watched the extras on the Friday the 13th part 5 disc, you'll know that Danny Steinman was kind of eccentric. So I don't know whether to believe that bit of information.
I think he was kind of a cokehead. If
it's a good thing he's no longer with us, so we'd be sued. Yes, the crew traveled to Solvang, is the name of the town in Northern California, to begin shooting the festival footage. This was a couple of weeks before they were actually doing the main shoot, and they were asked to stop when the mayor realized it was for use in a horror film, and they had to pay him off to get the shots they needed in the end. Steinman was unaware that as shooting commenced, the producer, Tony Unger, had hired an editor to start piecing the film together using the dailies so that they'd have a kind of rough cut or a near complete cut ready for the Cannes Film Festival. And Steinman was under the impression he was going to be editing the film himself. And so this is, as you were saying, Joseph, this is why he sort of fell out with the production team and took his name off the credits. Incidentally, the pseudonym Peter Foleg that he uses, Peter is his brother's name and Geldof is his mother's maiden name. So if you flip that around and take out the D, you get Foleg, that's how he came up with the pseudonym. Let's see. Yeah.
Well, I do know that if a lot of women out there take out the D, they get Foleg.
You're so bold. I don't even 100% know what you mean, but I know it's real.
Yeah, I was reaching there a little bit, but it was more of
don't be reaching for my D.
More of an Al Bundy type joke. But anyway.
Yes. So Steinman says, and this is a direct quote from the interview, "My film was turned into an abortion by greedy, low-life cocksuckers. The unseen became bland, slow, and tame with no suspense or scares." Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Use absolutely dirty language.
Did he give any indication? Because I know he said before that he said they took out all the scares and all the good stuff, which it seems a bit strange you would do that for a horror movie. Why did he elaborate what was actually cut out?
He didn't. No, he just it's criticizing kind of the pace of the editing rather than anything else. He doesn't say anything about missing scenes. He just says that it's just really slowly paced and they didn't edit it the way he wanted. He doesn't say anything about, there was footage of this and that have gone.
He sounds like a kooky character, and I met him like very briefly at Monster Mania when they did the Friday the 13th reunion.
Yeah.
But he's always going to be he's always going to have a special place in my heart, no matter how strange he sounds, because he did Friday the 13th Part 5.
And he did Savage Streets in between Unseen and this,
that's a good one.
A great Linda Blair and Linnea Quigley movie, yes.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Thanks for reminding me about that one. That's a good one.
And that is all the background I have.
Okay, right. Well, thank you, Erik. What was the consensus with our dear listeners, Joseph?
Well, out of a could be better 54 votes, 84% of those listeners enjoyed The Unseen. That's a high number, whilst the remaining 16% did not. Our listener of the week is Mitch King over on Facebook, and he writes, "This is one of my favorites. It's slow but has tons of atmosphere that are almost Southern Gothic. It's a good companion movie to Silent Scream. Love it! Exclamation point, exclamation point." So thank you, Mitch. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, YouTube, and all good and bad podcatchers. Our email address is info or feedback at thehysteriacontinues.net.
Excellent. Right. Yes. Well, please do get in touch with us. And what you might want to be doing is getting in touch with some earplugs, because you know what's coming next.
It's my joke of the week. It's so freaking fantastic.
So, I used to own a pub named after a certain piece of ladies' underwear, but it was stolen from me by a famous Bond girl. But I called the police, and now I've got my bar bra back. My bar. It's called bra. I got it back.
What's a bar bra, though?
It's a bar that's called bra. I got my bar bra back.
Wait a minute. Like you own a bar that you've named bra?
Yeah.
Oh.
For the purposes of my hilarious joke, I've purchased a bar that's called bra.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, Nathan. Once again, my humor is too sophisticated. Thank you, Joseph. Joseph likes it. Justin, are you still there?
Barely. But no, well, thank you, Erik. That was just like The Unseen. That was something.
You're welcome.
So
it was just so bad that it was great.
Yeah. Well, I do. Talking of feedback, I think we have a little bit for the show, don't we? You did put out the call last time.
That's the feedback.
Yeah? Okay, who would like to go first?
Nathan, go ahead.
Mine says, "Hey, Joseph, Justin, Erik, and Nathan. Long time no contact, so sorry. How are you guys? I'm still listening regularly to the podcast, but I'm a bit behind as I've been super busy. I'm still loving the show, and I'm so pleased you guys keep going. I'm now home working, so have found myself with more time to catch up with you and lots of my favorite films. I've also caught up with a few great books in the main, the Fridas Guides to. There are 4 so far in the series, and I would highly recommend these to your listeners. Great reading, and they really take your mind off what we are all going through. Funny how real life has ended up being more challenging and scary than anything we see on screen. But we are all in this together, and we will get through it despite the many miles that separate our respective countries. Sending hugs and best wishes during this very horrible and uncertain time. Please keep safe all, and I hope you can continue to keep us all entertained and cheery over the next few months. Very best wishes, Kevin." Oh, it's Tosca.
Tosca
Top Socks.
Yes.
Why is he signing it Kevin, though?
Yay!
Well, he did sign, Tosca Top Socks afterwards, but Kevin, he also wrote Kevin like first.
Well, good to have you back, Tosca.
Maybe he's Yeah, maybe he's wanting to slowly transition out of the Tosca into Kevin-isms.
He's transitioning from Tosca to Kevin.
Yeah, that's what I think he's doing.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, thank you, Tosca. Good to hear from you. So, who else has got a little something apart from Erik?
I do. I have
You've got a little something.
I got a little something for you, big boy. This one says, "Hi guys, excuse me if you've mentioned this on the show recently, but did you know that on February 28th, a new Toya box set was released?"
I did know this.
Okay, it's 7 discs plus a DVD with 44 bonus tracks and a 48-page book and sleeve notes on all the albums included by Toya herself. My question to Justin, how many copies of this box set will you be buying?
Yeah, Justin.
Well, I'm trying to think. There is when's Bonfire Night? It's not for a while, is it?
Well, he does say. I was thinking you could buy a couple for yourself and one for each of the other members of the Hysteria Continues. That way, everybody will be current on all their Toya knowledge and references. After all, Christmas is just around the corner. Well, not really. Thanks, and keep up the outstanding podcasting. Brett from the Comeuppance Reviews podcast. And he says, P.S. On the Shout Factory Blu-ray of Black Christmas, there's a commentary by Billy, i.e. actor Nick Mancuso. Have any of you listened to this commentary? And if so, what did you think of it? I've watched all the other extras on the disc, but avoided that one for some reason. Should I check it out?
I haven't seen it.
I didn't even know that was. I don't have the Shout Factory disc, I'm afraid.
I don't either. And I would say, in these topsy-turvy times, you've got nothing better to do. Sure, check it out. It might be interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thank you for letting us know about the Toya box set, because I do need a new set of coasters. So it's useful to know that.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, well, I'm going to make coasters out of Susie and the Banshees albums.
Well, you have a few that you could do that with.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to plop on them.
Oh, Erik, please.
Take pictures and send one to Justin every day.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Right. Well, thank you. Erik, have you got anything for us?
I do. This is from Simon Kingsley Holmes, and he says, "Hello again, chums. I just wanted to drop a line to the fellow Kiwi who contacted me on Facebook about the show after my last email. Hello to that person. Sorry I didn't reply, but I've deactivated my account, and your message request was the last thing I saw. Is there some way we can exchange emails through the podcast? It'd be great to get in contact with a fellow New Zealand horror fan, talking about favorite gory deaths and fantasizing about a Kiwi slasher in which Brian Tamaki and Paul Henry meet horrifying ends. Who the hell are Brian Tamaki and Paul Henry? Does anyone know?
Is this a fucking Craigslist meet cute? Are we supposed to playing dating service here or what?
I'm not up in my New Zealand celebrities apart from Peter Thingy. Bad taste, Peter. What's his surname? Jackson. Thank you. By the way, would Death Warmed Up count as a slasher movie? I've never seen Death Warmed Up.
I haven't either. I remember it being at the video store all the time, but I never rented it.
I had 100 copies on VHS. Remember that, Nathan? We had 40 of those.
I do remember that.
Why did you
They were so easy to find back in the day. I mean, we just see them and we just pick them up.
We would buy duplicates because you never know when one might break.
True. Yeah, and did you actually watch it, though?
No. So I don't know.
God.
But we had a lot of movies. It was hard to watch all of them.
Well, if you have 40... Oh,
okay, that's an exaggeration.
Yeah, 40 is an exaggeration.
We had 3 or 4, probably. Yeah.
And were they all the same, all the same label in that, or was it different labels?
Yeah, it's mostly the same artwork.
Isn't the artwork like the skull with the hanging out of a glass or something?
Or it had maybe the surgical mask on or something. It sounded like maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Death Warmed Up, none of us have really seen, so that can be some of our homework.
And Nathan's looking it up in the background. I
totally am. I'm like, what is this artwork? Oh, it's the medical doctor, and they're holding a scalpel. That's not how you do surgery.
You sound like RuPaul there. Like when she does, she already done had hers. Okay, well, the Death Warmed Up query was the last thing in the email. Cheers again, Simon Kingsley Holmes. P.S. Sorry, it's not the last thing. P.S. Something I forgot to say in the last email. Nathan, you seem like a top bloke, and I think the milk of human kindness courses through your veins.
Oh, thank you.
He says, though, would it be possible to get a Kenneth Williams noise for the milk of human kindness?
What? What does that mean? Yes and no.
Well, yes, if you're asking me to marry you, and no, if you're not.
Well, I don't have to get married to prove myself.
Well, you do to prove yourself with me.
But how do we know we're physically suited to each other? I mean, it's like do-it-yourself with the wallpaper, isn't it?
Wallpaper?
Yes, you don't just go into the shop and buy enough for the whole room. You tear yourself off a little strip and try it first.
That may be so, but you're not going to stick me up against the wall.
But it's nice. I'm sure that's the only time that Nathan's been called a top.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Because he's often bookended by grunting men.
See, you're all bullying me.
Yep. Justin, do you have any feedback?
So, no, I haven't got anything this time, but when we go back to Scream 3, which we're recording, well, let me start that again. So,
the time travel is just too much for our brain.
I know.
It's Fridays.
I don't have anything this time, but hopefully next time. So what are we covering next time?
Next, it's Joseph's choice.
Ooh.
What can it be?
Oh, yes, it is my choice next time. Before I reveal my choice, I have a question for you, Erik.
Yes.
Are you a female?
I'm not a female, but I think I know where this is leading.
Because you're going to be on our next episode dedicated to Lamberto Bava's A Blade in the Dark, one of my favorite.
I'm so excited. I love that movie.
One of my favorite 80s Lamberto Bava giallos. I can't wait to talk about it.
Well, you know what happens when you call somebody a female? They grow up and they grow up and kill people.
Yeah, that's true.
And
Spoiler alert.
Kind of in brutal ways, too, I must add.
Are you trying to say you're going to be growing up, Erik?
That's ever going to happen, Justin.
So
A Blade in the Dark next time.
Fantastic. Okay, well, we'll look forward to that.
A Blade in the Dark, the big question mark.
A very wonderful choice.
Thank you very much,
That's
Joseph.
not a spider, that's a cockroach.
No, it was a spotter.
Yes.
So, what are we playing out with, Erik?
Oh, we're playing out with Can't You See, which is an 80s electro-pop song by a band called Vicious Pink. Can't You See? Because it's like unseen. That's why I chose a song
I see where you're going with that. Yes.
Oh, that makes a lot more sense to me now.
Yes.
So, thank you for listening.
The ironic thing is, I saw The Unseen in The Unseen.
Yes. Oh, I did too.
Yeah.
The Unseen was Saw.
It was Saw. Yeah.
Yeah. Saw 5.
It's like a paradox.
Man, that's so interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
It all ties in with this time travel crap we're doing.
Indeed,
alternate realities of being seen and unseen.
I wonder if I'll meet my future self.
You might.
What are you talking about time traveling?
Well, we're
recording the last episode next.
Yeah, so it's
the last episode.
So it's kind of like time crimes.
We're recording the episode technically before this one next time.
Yes.
And the final horse crosses the finish line.
How are you doing?
Do we have to travel at 88 kilometers per hour from now till Sunday for it to happen?
Well, isn't kilometers different from miles per hour?
Miles. Just miles. Yeah, sorry.
Well, I don't know if there's like a variation difference. I don't know.
I'm going to put a flux capacitor in my underpants.
in Lanzarote, do they go by kilometer or mile?
Kilometers.
I'm leaving this all in the show, by the way.
I know, it's fascinating stuff. So,
well, I didn't know because I know they are in the UK, but you aren't in the UK, so I mean it might be something different now.
Well, it's miles in the UK.
Oh,
it's not kilometers.
Kilometers.
No, it's
they don't like doing the European thing in the UK.
No, which you might have guessed by Brexit.
Was it a big transition, Justin?
What do you mean
to go from like miles to kilometers?
No, well, I don't.
If you say I'm going to go to someone's house, you're like, oh, that they live like 5 miles away, but 5 miles, I don't know what that is in kilometers.
8.
Yeah, it's not a massive change because I've been into Europe quite a few times, but and also I don't drive, so not too much of a stretch for me.
Do you just choose not to drive, or
it's a long story. It's a long story. I used to work for a company that it's too boring to go into, so I won't. I nearly took my test, but
I'm intrigued.
I'm intrigued.
Well, the way he says, it's a long story. It sounds all sinister.
It's like, I think he sounds like a grizzled, prospector kind of guy.
Well, I'll tell you, but you don't have to leave it in the show. It's very boring. But I used to work for East Sussex County Council, and I lived in Brighton, and I worked with people with learning difficulties in a residential homes. And I was taking, because we lived in Brighton where you could get around quite easily, it was quite small, and we didn't have a car, but I was learning to drive for work, and then they passed a rule saying you couldn't drive unless you had a clean license for a year, which meant that I would have taken my test, passed it, and then not driven for a year. And then I thought as soon as I got in the car I would have crashed it, so I didn't take my test, which was a mistake. So I bet you're glad you got that out of me now, aren't you?
Well, yes. It's just, I think we all make up a big puzzle. So all these pieces, just kind of fit in each of our puzzles.
Well, exactly. Some of us more puzzling than others, but I agree with that sentiment.
Yeah, Nathan.
Yeah.
Me?
Well,
I'm unpuzzled.
That's impossible.
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 That's another Simpsons reference.
Yes, Ralph says it.
Yeah.
So we actually haven't even done the whole goodbyes yet, have we?
No, we're still building up to that. So we're playing out with Eric's choice, and next time we're back off to Italy for a Blade in the Dark. So join us next time on The Hysteria Continues. So say goodbye to the good people.
Goodbye, good people.
Goodbye.
That was good.
That was a bit of a cluster at the end there.
It was rather, wasn't it?
Well, clusters are good. Have you ever had peanut clusters?
Oh, they're lovely.
Can't check your clock. You won. Can't check your clock.